Hello, 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 and welcome to or not a, but the relaunching of The Hidden Truth, revamped with your host, Torn Leak. I'm so excited that you all have tuned in tonight. Some of you are still coming on. Tonight is, again, just the relaunching of The Hidden Truth. We took a sabbatical from The Hidden Truth. We tried to jumpstart another podcast that didn't work out. So I felt that it was beneficial that we go back to what we were used to, and that is The Hidden Truth. So I'm back. I'm glad you guys are here tonight. Glad many of you have tuned in. Some of you are going to be listening to the replay. But The Hidden Truth is back. I want you to follow us on Facebook, follow us on Spreaker. If you don't have either of those, you can find us on Spotify. You can find us on iHeartRadio. You can find us on Apple iPod. But again, this is The Hidden Truth Revamp with your host, Torn Leak. And tonight, I'm excited to be able to host three powerful young people who are awesome in their own right. God has given them a platform, given them a voice, given them influence. And I'm very proud to say that they are from here in my home state of Connecticut. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves tonight as we talk tonight from the subject of inside of the world of preaching PKs. So I'm going to step back right quick, and I'm going to allow them the opportunity to introduce themselves, give you a little insight of who they are, what they do, what they're about, and then we'll jump right into the conversation. So whichever one of you guys want to go first, go right ahead, be my guest.
Hello. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you, Prophet, for allowing me to be on this podcast. I believe that the Lord is definitely doing a great work through you. To those who do not know me, my name is Angel Jefferson. I really don't have a title, and I don't like to really introduce myself as doing so many things. However, what I do like to go by is being a child of God. I attend the Body of Christ Ministries under the leadership of Pastor Norman Jefferson and First Lady Jefferson. And that's all I would just like to say to you guys. I look forward to what is going to take place on this show. And thanks again for having me.
All right. Thank you for joining us. Next.
Blessings, guys.
All right.
Nathaniel Jefferson. I'm honored, Prophet. Thank you for this invite, and that introduction was amazing. I appreciate it. I don't think I'm that good, though, but I am honored and delighted to be here with you guys. As my sister acclaimed, I am from the Body of Christ Ministries, where I serve under the leadership of Pastor Norman and Tracy Jefferson. I currently am the youth pastor there, where I'm just, helping these young kids develop their faith in Jesus Christ. But again, I'm so excited about tonight, and I can't wait to see all that is in store.
All right, and we got one more.
Amen. Hello, everyone. My name is Kiara Simmons, and I am so excited again. I echo what my brother and my sister have already said. Prophet, thank you so much again for extending the invitation to come and be a part of this wonderful relaunching. I am from Bridgeport, Connecticut, and I am 20 years old, and I am just so grateful to God that He has chosen me and all of us to be a voice in this generation, and I look forward to this discussion and everything that follows.
Awesome. Listen, I love you guys. Listen, y'all introduction, y'all was so humble. Now, if don't nobody know y'all, I'm going to tell them tonight, y'all are some powerful people. I've been in services with you. I seen you behind the microphone. I done heard you sing. I done heard you preach. I done heard you prophesy. I love these little humble introductions tonight. It's beautiful.
Praise God.
All right, so let me tell y'all about The Hidden Truth right quick. The Hidden Truth is a platform where we are able to just be free, no reservation. We can say we are unjudged. We are unrestricted. I'm not gonna say there's no filters, but I'm a little controversial, and so I like to address things that might not normally like to be addressed, but that's just me. So I'm not gonna go there directly, But just in case I happen to go there, don't y'all be afraid. I'll take all the brunt and the blame for it. But I just feel like as PKs, and then as preachers who are PKs, there's just some things that are not necessarily addressed, but talked about or talked around behind the scenes. And I think for the most part, being a PK myself and a preacher, things that people just like to overlook as if it's not happening, when in fact it really is.
Absolutely.
And I think this is the perfect way to segue into the conversation. Growing up as a PK, as a matter of fact, I was a preacher before I was a PK, and it just so happened that I went into ministry before my mom became pastor, and so the responsibility or the obligation to be a preacher, because my parents wasn't necessarily the case. But I know for you guys, that might be a little different. Nonetheless, knowing all the while that I've been a preacher all my life, just about, this year makes 17 years I've been preaching. I'm only 30 years old. There were still some standards that I was held to, that were very non-realistic. And let's talk about that. Non-realistic expectations of PKs. How has being a PK placed such a demand on you that could have been possibly detrimental to your walk with Christ? I'm not even going to say you as a preacher, but just your walk with Christ and these unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, I honestly think, me, myself, I'm not a PK, but I am a preacher's kid. My dad was an elder. He started off at Faith Bible Center under the leadership of Bishop James Shannon. At the time was the pastor. But I seen him preach the word in season and out of season, and he was a true man of God. But as a child, I did see, a little things that could have been controversial, if you will. I'm not on here, to try to discredit my father. He's a great guy, but I would definitely say even around my surrounding areas, different pastor kids where I think what has to happen is that parents who are pastors have to be the same how they act in church and out of church, if you know what I'm saying. And it's like, I think pastors can be in their church voice and their church clothes, and they act one way in front of the saints, but when they get home, their actions is inconsistent with their profession of faith.
Wow. Okay.
And that holds an effect. It holds an effect on their children. Like, you're one way here, but when you get home, you're acting a totally different way. And as a child is watching that, as he or she is growing up, it put a bad taste in their mouth about church. And that's why people always say PKs are the worst kids, you can possibly deal with, because there's so many things that they're dealing with. They're dealing with the pastor, but they're also dealing with the dad. It's like, how can you distinguish the two? You understand what I'm saying, Prophet?
Right. Yes, sir.
So I think what has to happen is that pastors and the fathers have to be both one person, not two individuals. You understand? Yeah.
Angel?
Yeah, come on.
Yes, just to feedback off of where Nate has spoken, I believe that there has to be a consistency with the not just with the pastor, and also with the pastor being a dad to their children, because of the fact that when the child is exposed to the style, if you will, or the presentation of the pastor, and then they have to go back home and deal with the father, it's like sometimes I believe the pastors, which are a father, has a hard time of transitioning from being a pastor and actually being a father to their children, which is, it really holds an effect to the child because of the fact there isn't any balance. And so this is why, again, you have children who are dealing with these issues. Their father is not attending to them emotionally. Why? Because, again, the father is too busy doing church work, too busy dealing with the saints, too busy dealing with the people in the church, that it's hard for them to actually be just a father to that child.
Okay. I see. Yeah, okay. Kiara, come on.
I totally stand in agreement with what Nate and Angel said, definitely about the consistency of a leader/parent. And another unrealistic thing and demand that people put on PKs is that they are not hurt or that they don't see. And they tend to forget or overlook that PKs are still people. They still have, spirits. They still have hearts. They still have minds. They still see. And people tend to overlook that. And it's almost like a demand that you can't be hurt. You have to continue to get back up. You can't bleed, And when they're treated like that, you have and create a mess on your hands, because then when they grow up with resentment, they grow up with hatred, they grow up not wanting to be a part of the church in any capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And you see this and you wonder why. But then you also neglected that when they were younger and when they were brought up, you didn't address certain issues. You wanted them to be perfect. You hold them to a high pedestal. And then when they get a certain age or when they get somewhere and they can kind of have freedom, it's an unrealistic expectation that you think that they won't make a mistake or that they won't have to learn a lesson, and then that damages them, because when they do make a mistake or when they do fall, you have people who are very judgmental, who are criticized so harshly to the point where they basically just turn them away. So you have all these things that come into play with, unrealistic expectations, of a preacher's kid.
Mm-hmm. I remember, maybe about a month ago, I had the opportunity to minister for a pastor's anniversary. And I felt kind of out of place, but once I got there, I felt the temperature of the house, and the Lord began to expose and deal with some things while there. And one thing I said to, during the message, I believe was, do you know how many kids hate you guys in the congregation? And I used the term hate and I laughed it off. But then as I'm ministering, I really began to think about how many kids have grown up resenting the church because of something that, I believe it was, Sister Angel that brought it up. And I believe Nate brought it up as well, when the parents spend so much time giving themselves to the ministry, giving themselves to the saints, and going to visit the sick and showing up to hospitals, and always accepting preaching engagements, so on and so forth, that you kind of neglect home. You neglect to express that same type of love at home. Was there ever a point in your development, spiritually or naturally, where you kind of felt yourself resenting the church just a little bit because you weren't being shown the same type of love in some type of manner as the others who were not you? I'll say it that way.
I would say definitely, most definitely. I think when people, and it goes back to what we were saying before, when people hold you to such a high pedestal in ministry, and people hold you to such a high standard, it's like you can't do any wrong. And you see a lot of people come in and out. You see a lot of people doing kind of their own thing. And here you are, young and anointed, and operating in ministry, and you find yourself like, okay, this is great. You love God, you know you love God, you know you love to go to church, church babies, but then you also figure like, okay, where is my parents? Like, I understand, the church, comes first. So I understand that, ministry is very important, but to my own natural and spiritual development, where do I fit in? Where do you have room for me? And then you go on and you grow up, then you kind of are doing your own thing. And it's kind of like, I don't want to be bothered, because where do I fit in with ministry? Where do I fit in when you have a whole congregation of people who are pulling at you, plus a home, and if your parent is married, you have that relationship that comes, first as well, and then you have the church, and you're kind of just the last on the totem pole, so you can kind of feel neglected, and kind of like, where do I fit in at times?
Mm-hmm.
So definitely.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I will say this, that my dad at church, 5 times out of the week for prayer about 3 times a day, and I would be on his back. So I already understood, even at that age, growing up, I understood the amount of time that was invested into building God's kingdom, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me to see other pastors' kids, such as, the son of the bishop that we was under, I would see the bishop at church 24/7, Monday through Friday. And as I'm growing up, I gain knowledge and wisdom on that, like how you keeping a balance between your home life and church life, right? How you are being able to minister to so many people and minister to your home, to your wife, to your son. And those are the key years where you're really supposed to grab a hold and grab a foothold in your child's life, because if you don't, they will grow up feeling rejected, neglected, growing up with resentment and anger at the church, because you didn't do the responsible due diligence by ministering to your child, not as a pastor, but as a father. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, it's like chaos break loose. Now your child becomes very angry and resentment, not only with the church, but the way how you parent is the way how they receive God.
Wow.
Right? And I understand that now. It's like how a father or how a mother acts towards his child. That's the same expectation that the child will think that God will act towards them. So now you're bringing that burden on the child. I got this image of God because this is what I experienced in my home. So there's a lot that can be said there, Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Angel?
Yes, I believe, Nate, you just touched on it. Everything that you just literally spoke out, I believe I was going to say. But really, what I just believe, my pastor always say this, who I'm under, that your first ministry, it should be your home. It just should be your home, because I believe you can't be affected enough until you are willing to be effective to your home first. I believe you can't be successful to your church if you're not successful at your home first. And so, again, I believe that there just should just be a balance when it comes to the pastor being a father to the child, to their children, because anybody who knows me, that's one thing that I just really deal with. I deal with children who have parents who wasn't in their life, and one of the reasons why individuals grow up so angry and so resentful is because of the neglect that they have experienced from their mother or their father, who wasn't in their life like how they should have. And so it's like, all right, I see my father, who's a pastor, doing all these services, but missing out on my basketball game, missing out on the activities that I have. And it's just like, hey, well, where's my father? This is supposed to be my father. And again, when they see this and they see the profession of your faith and they see who you represent, it's not only are they now building this resentment towards you, but they are now growing a hatred for the God that you serve. And so, my God, and so that's why I believe God even, tells us how we are to, how parents are to minister to their children. Why? Because it is the first ministry. And so I believe in order for this thing to be done the right way, I just really believe that, again, there just should be a balance when it comes to being a pastor and also ministering to your children.
Awesome. I'm loving it. Thank you all for who are just tuning in now. You are tuned into the Hidden Truth Revamp with your host, Torrin Leak. And tonight we are talking about inside of the world of preaching PKs. You are able to dial in at 203-444-9884 with any questions, comments, or concerns that can be addressed by our guests tonight. We have the brother and sister duo of Nate and Angel Jefferson and Kiara Simmons, who all three are out of Bridgeport, Connecticut. Powerful young people, leaders, awesome in their own right, being used of the Lord greatly. And tonight we are just conversing about being PKs, not necessarily pastors' kids, but preachers' kids. And I believe that we're all held to the same standard, which is sometimes not the right standard, but it is what it is. And so tonight we are addressing that on tonight. Again, you can dial in or you can text at 203-444-9884. I want to go back to one word that you guys use that really sticks out to me, and it's a word that we use quite often at our ministry here in Hamden. Balance. What exactly do you call balance? That could be a wide variety of things. Me personally, I'm a church baby. That's all I know. Kiara, I know you personally. I'm kind of just getting to know Nate and Angel. But I know me and Kiara, we pew babies. We were born right on the pew. We came out the womb on Monday, and by Wednesday night we were in prayer and Bible study, all wrapped up, cuddled in our what they call the car seats. We were sitting right there.
Listen, sure was.
But so for me, balance for me is going to church on Friday night. I don't mind going to church on Saturday, being in church all day Sunday. I'm cool with being in church 7 days a week. But for the pre-K, for the PK, who is tired of church, sick of church, what exactly is a good balance? What is balance? Define balance.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, whoever that is.
No, go ahead, bro. Go ahead. You can go. Go ahead.
Okay, balance is basically meaning both equal weights on both sides, where it's a steady palette, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think balance, if you look at scripture, balance is what's happening in Numbers chapter 11 when Jethro was having a conversation with Moses, and he's telling him, listen, you have to raise up people to carry some of your work, right? You cannot be the one trying to pray for everyone, heal everyone, get everybody in contact with the Lord. You have to raise up some elders. So I think what has to happen is that there got to be there's some days during a month where a pastor has to delegate responsibilities to ministers in the church, so that he can be able to have family time. Pastors don't have to. Someone said this to me. He's like, he first started a church. You can't take no breaks from them for the next 5 to 7 years. I didn't understand that because I didn't agree with it, because I guess it's a baby. But what if you have a family? You're in church 24/7, so you're neglecting your family and giving all your time and all your effort to the church.
Mm-hmm.
There has to still be a balance in there. Two are better than one, as the word declares. But yeah, like I said, balance is what's happening in Numbers chapter 11. There has to be people that you can count on as far as pastors. people that they can count on who can preach the Sunday service, or who can go to the hospital and pray for the sick, or who can stand in the gap when they have responsibilities elsewhere. To me, that's balance. It might be chaotic, but you can still have a balanced schedule even in the midst of all that. That makes sense. I hope I'm making sense.
No, you're making perfect sense.
To me, that's balance.
Right. Absolutely. Just to go off what Nate said, that was just really powerful. That scripture that you used, how Moses, he had people who can take the load off because of how just the load of ministry can be, and again, I'm always referring back to my pastor. My pastor, he's like, listen, I'm not picking up everybody's phone call. If you want to sit there and want me to pray for you, I'll call you the next day, or you get on your knees yourself and pray. And so I believe that, he has some balance because, again, of course, he's a man of God, he's a pastor, but he also has a life too. Mm-hmm. And so when we talk about balance, in my context of what I mean about balance is being able to, have the freedom to be able to be with your family and also be able to minister to the church and do the work. We're not talking about in a sense of just neglecting everything that you do for the church, but also the same amount of labor that you are put in the church should be put in your home as well.
Right.
That is so true. And the key word here, like I said, balance and delegation. Delegation is so important, even for the load that the pastor carries, because you see pastors really honestly becoming sick, physically ill from the weight that they carry. And that is also another reason why PKs are resented people, because they're like, yo, I killed off my parents, but that's a whole other topic. But balance is key. Now, for some people, they didn't really have much of a balance because it was always church, 24/7, without a doubt, like Prophet said, born on a Monday, on the pew, Wednesday night, and you just did that. But even, I know for my brother and sister here, we don't have no problems going to the diner after church. And I find that to be my balance as well. Because after, we've labored or we worship, you preach, you prophesy, you sang, we go and we hang out. And we hang out together. And I also feel like that, too, holds us accountable to each other. We're not out running around, in everything or in stuff that could, causes any harm or, any trouble. But, you're amongst people who, you can let your hair down with. And that's important, too, because then when you become stressed and you're angry and you're bitter, how are you affected? As my sister was saying earlier, you're not affected because you're angry. You don't want to come to church. You don't want to minister. You don't want to do anything concerning ministry, sake, because you're angry. So it's important to find that balance, even if you have a certain day. I know my parents, they try to make their balance day on Monday with family day. What's happening within our family, what's happening with us. You take, a break, and then the rest of the week, they're involved and they're doing, whatever they need to do for the Lord's house. But, balance is very important amongst, PKs and preachers.
So balance is very, very vital.
It's pivotal.
Yes.
Okay.
It is very pivotal. Yes.
Oh, so is it pivotal for sanity's sake, or is it pivotal just to survive, period?
I think both. If you look at it,
I think both. Yes.
Absolutely, yeah. If you look at it from both perspectives, not only do you need to survive, but you also need your sanity to carry on.
Mm-hmm.
And Kiara, you touched on a different perspective of it, like when kids do have to be in church 24/7 with their parents. Okay, who's holding them accountable afterwards? Like you just said, I can reiterate with us going out to diner after we preach, we prophesied, and whatever, we're just in church serving the Lord. Is that someone that can hold you accountable? Like, listen, you can be honest and transparent with the person that you're with, letting your hair down, and tell them what you're going through as far as being there in the church 24/7. I feel like I'm here all the time. And then those are people who can literally be there for you, pull you through the season. So, absolutely, it is. It's pivotal for both reasons.
Right. I think definitely for both your sanity, and everything to keep it together. Just like with your natural job, you sometimes just want to be able to get away and be able to kind of go and gather yourself. And even preachers, there is a time I really feel that we need as well. After you've poured out so much, you need to be poured into as well, spiritually, naturally, mentally, physically, financially, all of the above. The Lord is, and that's the thing, God is concerned about the total man, your whole entire well-being, and He doesn't want anything lacking concerning us. So it's important and pivotal that we have a time where we can kind of gather our thoughts for our sanity's sake, and just kind of process everything that is going on, process different events, because sometimes it can become a blur. You can walk through, being a preacher, being a PK, and it's all a blur. And you look up one day and you're like, well, what has happened for the last 10 years? What has happened for the last 5 years?
Listen.
And, you become, you get in that space where honestly you're like, everything is kind of just tied up in one. Everything is just together. And you want to be able to walk through your life, spiritual life, natural life, and understand and be sober-minded, of what's going on, and not have to feel like you're cloudy and, what's happening. So that's very important.
Anyone else?
Yeah, that's another man. I'll say there's one more last thing. I'm sorry. It's like, too, you can also become, insensitive. When you do things constantly for so long, you feel like you're just going through the motions now.
Right.
You're just like, okay, I got to go pray for someone else. Okay, I got to go say this another prophetic word to someone else. It's like you lose the context of why you're supposed to be doing it, or the motive of why you're supposed to be doing it. You're doing it so long because you're not having that balance. The word that we're using is that you become so insensitive. Like, this is something I have to do. Like, I have to go to work Monday morning. That makes sense. Yeah.
Exactly. And also, just to, I just want to and put this right here. I believe balance is necessary because not only for sanity's sake, but also for functionality. In order for something to keep functioning, there has to be a balance. In order for us, why do our jobs gives us off days? Why? Because for us to regroup, for us to balance, and so I believe us as being preacher kids or pastor kids, it is important that there be a balance, and also for those who are pastors and do have a church and have children, in order for us to continue to function as a healthy family, there has to be a balance, on the Monday, again, like my sister Kiara said, Monday, it's going to be family time. Thursday, I'm going to answer some emails, some calls for the church. And as we continue to do this, this will continue to keep our family together. Why? Because there's balance, which is going to continue on with the function of our family.
Awesome. So we got just a little over 11 minutes left, and I want to tackle two more questions, and then let you guys wrap it up. The next question I wanted to ask was, did any of you ever at any point feel obligated, like you had to be a preacher because your parent or your grandmother or grandfather or sister, brother, or cousin were a preacher? It just felt like the family thing to do. Did any of you ever feel that sense of responsibility or obligation outside of actually being called to ministry? Uh-oh.
Yeah, I mean, I really didn't. I kind of fell into it. Just seeing, the environment that I was put in. I just kind of adapted to it. But there wasn't no type of force, like you have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I remember my dad, he just put his hand on my head and started praying for me and prophesying over me and saying, greater works than I had done. You should do. I didn't have a mic in my hand at that time, but I already felt led by the Spirit of God to start to preach and declare the word of the Lord. But as far as feeling forced, that's not an experience that I had.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, I don't think I was ever put in that situation where I felt like I was forced. Of course, I come from a family who, we have preachers, and so it seemed as though I was forced into this, or it may look as though I was forced into this because of how many preachers that we had in our family, but it wasn't something that I was forced into. It was just that, just me being who I am as a child of God, and also being one who is devoted into the word of God. Naturally, it's just something that I just do. Technically, being I preach the word of God, just not on the pulpit. I do it outside, at work and all that stuff, but it's not necessarily something I would say I was forced into.
Yeah, most definitely. I thank God that my, parents and grandparents were very fervent and very honest about allowing the Lord to reveal, to you what you're supposed to do in ministry. So it wasn't just get up here and preach because I'm a preacher. Now, what the Lord has spoken to them concerning me, of course, years ago and years, before I was here, was something different, but something that I had to come into for myself. And that was very important growing up for us, that without a shadow of a doubt, I can tell you all day long, I can prophesy to you all day long, but you have to have an assurance in your spirit that the Lord is calling you to do what he's calling you to do. And, even from a young age, I had a sense of knowing, what the Lord was calling me to do. And, at a very early age as well. And like Nate had said earlier, kind of just gradually falling into it and gradually coming into it. But, thank God there was never a moment I was forced to stand, behind, the mic and have to and be forced into it before I was ready. So.
Okay. And I love you guys' answers. And I just wanted to clarify. I wasn't asking, if your parents kind of forced you into it. I was just saying, if you ever, kind of grew up and was like, well, my mom's a preacher, so maybe I should be a preacher too. Kind of not, kind of feeling like you had to do it. And, maybe growing up, you was like, oh, I want to be a cop. Oh, I want to be a lawyer. But my dad, my mom, they're preachers. Maybe I should do what they're doing. Because, sometimes kids grow up and they kind of grow up in the shadow of their parents, and they want to make their parents proud. And so the only way to make my parents proud is to do what they do. And quite frankly, we've seen a lot of people who have done that and have not been successful. And that's no shade to anybody. But, if it's not your grace, then why do it?
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Yeah. Even seeing them operate in what they operated in, I feel like, I was comfortable being a praise and worship leader. I was comfortable. I felt like, they were proud of that. And proud of me, even being in Christ. And like Angel was saying, people already have this idea of, and I think I can even say for all three of us, and all of us, that this is something that's forced. This is something that, you were thrown into. I've had people say, when did you have time to live? And, when did you have time to do X, Y, and Z? And everything like that. And, just knowing that they were proud of me. And that's something that was very important, too, I think, to kids, parents, to let them know that even if, you're not a preacher, and ministry is not always behind a microphone,
right.
That I am proud of whatever you do, and I am proud of you operating in the calling that God has called you in. Because, as you said, Prophet, if you're not graced for it, you have people making mess of it because just trying to operate in something that they are not called to, just for the purpose of saying, I match this one, or I'm in with this group, I'm in with that group. And then you see people, and like you said, then you bring things upon yourself that you're not ready to handle. So I definitely have had moments where I'm like, I definitely want to do this, and then you grow up and you kind of see, what they go through. And it's like, God, I'm sorry, never mind, I don't want that. I put on Jesus. I'll stay with the usher board because I don't want to do all that. But as you call me, where you lead me, I'll follow. That's what the spirit is. Because, walking, you like, wait a minute, Jesus, wait. Now, this little middle is a little rough here. I don't know if I want that.
Right.
It's all right. But, yeah.
I definitely, now that you rephrase the question like that, I guess you can kind of say that because, my father did have a great deal of influence, and even he taught me what it was to be really committed and devoted to the Lord. I always constantly see my father. I'll be waking up to my father praying in tongues, 4 o'clock in the morning, singing unto the Lord, and that kind of influenced me to build that relationship with God. And even as far as him preaching, him knowing the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, kind of encouraged me and pushed me to really know the Bible by heart. So when you say it that way, he did have a huge influence on me, and it kind of put me in a position to want to preach and to want to know the Word of God like he did, and to want to pray and all these great things. So I would definitely say yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So in these last 3 minutes, each of you just take a moment to encourage other preachers' kids and lift them up. Some of them may not want to be saved, may be tired of church, might have an ought against their parents for the sake of the church. Just encourage them. Anybody?
All right, guys. There was a story where Jesus was with his parents, and they was going to a festival. But after them leaving the festival, Jesus stayed back in the synagogue with rabbis, answering questions. His parents could not find him, so they backtracked and went back to go find him, and they found him where he was. And his response to them, he said, "Don't you know I'm about my Father's business?" If you grew up in an African-American home, that right there could have had your mom slap the taste out your mouth. But
right.
If you look at it from this connotation, if you look at it from this perspective, that as a child, you're going to make mistakes. It's going to be times when you feel like giving up and waving the white flag and saying, "God, I want to throw away my salvation." But I encourage you that if you can hold on and keep on putting one foot in front of the other, you will start to see the reason why God has not only called your parents, but why he called you. Even if you feel like you're feeling neglected, or you're feeling resentful towards the church because your mother and father is not at every basketball game or not at every recital, know that God is still with you, comforting you, pushing you along. So if I can say any word of encouragement to you, it would be that, to continue to press on to the mark of the high calling which is in Christ Jesus, and don't give up and don't give in. And also, don't forget that we are in a fallen world. Your parents aren't perfect. They're going to make mistakes. There are going to be things that they say and do that may not be in alignment or consistent with the profession of their faith. But always keep your expectations on Jesus Christ. Never look at your parents as if they are God, but look at the God that's leading them and guiding them. And I promise you, you will start to see the evidence of everything that you hope for. That's my encouragement.
Awesome. 15 seconds, Angel.
Yes. I'm reminded of a scripture that David prayed. I believe that many of us is familiar with the story of David, how he dealt with parents who really wasn't in his life like how he would in the scripture. One scripture that I absolutely go by, Psalms 27:10. He said, "Though my mother or father forsake me, I, the Lord, will receive you. And I just want to give some encouragement to any, PKs who felt as though mother or father has forsaken, and it has caused you to look at them